Hello everyone, welcome to my channel at Moose Plaid Mountaineer. Thank you very much for tuning into this video. My name is Seth. I'm titling this video, The Victorinox Swiss Army Huntsman, the Tradition of Adventure Readiness, and the Victorinox Farmer X Alox, the Tradition that Works, the Trust that Lasts. Okay. Also, you will see these two models here to the right of that, which are the Victorinox Swiss Army Climber and the Victorinox Swiss Army Pioneer X Alox. Okay, starting with the Victorinox Swiss Army Climber here in my green Celador scale version. This particular Swiss Army knife is the general ingenuity and construct Swiss Army people often picture when they think of an everyday pocketable EDC. Okay, it is a normally glossy red Celador, but in my case it's green. Okay, that gives this my own personal personality that I demonstrate to others when I pull it out and use it. It is warm, tactical, and visually friendly. The Celador scales are slightly grippier and warmer in the hand than the cold metal. The red finish reads as a classic Victorinox, approachable and unmistakable on any keychain or in any glove box. From a functionality standpoint, you have the following tool set. You have your 3-in-1, which is your 3mm Phillips driver and can opener, 2-in-1. My apologies. Here is your 3-in-1, which is your flathead screwdriver, bottle cap opener, and wire stripper. In the neighboring layer, you have your full-size scissors. Okay, very sharp, very precise, and very good quality. Okay, and then on the far side, you have your full-size blade. You have your pen blade. Okay, and on the back side, you have a corkscrew, which is excellent for taking out knots and as well as boring out any of those small and internal burrs that you have on holes that you have reamed out with your reamer awl right here. Okay, this works excellent for doing those fine tuning and recently holes drilled. If you look at the size of between the two, they're very close in size when it comes to this thickness here, and I think that is generally on purpose to be able to add that function to it. Okay, these, for me, this represents the perfect Swiss Army knife that is great for carrying just for every day. Someone who wants tools that they can actually use every day, just the simple cutting tags, trimming threads, opening mail, some small grooming jobs, the climber tool sets, and the familiar plastic Celador grips make it a dependable, friendly daily EDC. So in short, the Victorinox Swiss Army Climber is seen more of a broad, immediate, readily available, yet easier to deploy tool set for a comfortable utility. If you look here, the scales are thicker. The scale body is thicker, and to better solve everyday little problems, in my opinion. However, if we consider for one moment the Victorinox Pioneer X Alox, it emphasizes a more robust tool layout. Okay, so starting with just as simple enough, your 2-in-1, which is your 3mm Phillips driver and can opener. If you were to pull this open out here, right, you could definitely see the size difference, particularly in the thickness. It is visually, it looks in between like a 30 to 50% thicker added material on the Victorinox Alox, which only adds to its robustness and toughness, right, over your standard Victorinox Swiss Army Climber. Okay, which in my opinion is excellent for those stubborn toiling tasks, right, that need that little extra bit of manpower, in my opinion, right? So the Pioneer Alox leans into a more sturdier, robust finish feel and longevity look, okay? The Alox scales give the Pioneer X a more slim and particular edged profile and a satisfying solid weight and feel that signals durability and refinement, right? So if you compare the two, right? If I can get that out. If you compare the two, they're almost the same thickness. But what's impressive is, remember, the tools are thicker on here. So in order to if you were to add the same thickness on here, this tool would be that much thicker, right? But they're virtually the same. So if you were to match them up, right? Look at that. The thicknesses are almost exactly the same here, wide, right? It's quite impressive. Okay. So, okay, sorry, not to get too digressed here, okay? So part of the other tool sets that you have is, again, it's going to be the same. You have your 3-in-1 flathead screwdriver, bottle cap opener, and wire stripper, with your scissors having the nail nick on the opposite side, which is the side that is facing me, okay, right here. If you notice, the scissors on your climber are going to be opposite. So you see how it's opposite? I'll try to get it more into frame. You see how they're opposite of each other? That is one of the very singular difference. That's one of two differences that you'll find on the climber versus the Alox. Okay, I'll get to this. I'll get to the second difference here in just a minute. Okay. So after you have your scissors, you also in that same line have your inline reamer. Okay. Now remember, for the Victorinox Swiss Army climber, it's on the back spine. So you can see, if I can get it in the frame here. There we go, we'll just do that. You can see the difference, right? You hold this like that and this like that, right? So it's much more natural to hold it like this and ream, okay? Than having to hold it in a different fashion. Well, here, let me show you here real quick. Okay. I just happen to have this piece of 2x4 here, right? So grabbing here the awl, you could still do it fine. It's, you know, it's still good, but the amount of power that you can get behind here to where this feels essentially a lot more effort. All right. You can see the whole difference, and I pressed about the same amount. It's just the amount at which you're able to drive it in, right? Given the amount of pressure. Okay, so this guy, you need a lot less pressure because of how much you can direct and where you can direct that pressure in, right? So that just not to sound too punny on this thing, but it gives the Victorinox Alox an absolute edge on its functionality for the reamer, just in that specific vantage point, okay? Also, some other things to consider is the Alox versions are also lower profile in the pocket and resist surface marring differently than the plastic, right? We discussed that a little bit, meaning this gets a little bit dingy over time and a little bit dull, but this gets more of kind of like that ruggedly handsome look, more with, you know, the minute scratchings and the rubbings, right? Just the scales that you'll find on the Alox are a lot tougher and significantly more durable, which means they're virtually impervious to any superficial wear or damage, right? All right, so the value really comes to what you see in your Victorinox Swiss Army knife in regards to either an Alox or your standard Celador Swiss Army knife, right? So when it comes to, now to talk about these other guys over here, okay, I'll just leave these out here if I can. Okay, now When it comes to comparison, say the Huntsman and the Farmer X, which are essentially in the exact same category because they are the precise same tool set. The only thing that is different, right, is they do not have tools on the spine, just like the Pioneer X, right? That's just how they've done the Alox versions, right? Let's start off with one of the most obvious differences, kind of where I started leaving off with this one, right? It's just the handling of it all. Okay, so the Huntsman, right? Again, scales are lightweight, feature traditional inlaid Victorinox shield. They feel smooth in the hand, and they do and can show scratches and wear over time. The Farmer X, on the other hand, right, just like I was saying earlier, is has that textured grip, and it's nearly indestructible from any superficial wear or damage, and immune to that kind of general pocket abuse. Okay, there's no toothpick, there's no tweezers, nothing to do with any scale tools, but that's the trade-off to raw, robust strength in relation to the slim profile of any of the Victorinox Alox, right? Okay, and the Alox design honestly just feels more tool than toy, right? It just feels so solid in the hand. We discussed that it gets this, right? And again, right, if you look at this, they're virtually the same thickness, right? And that's what's remarkable about it. Look at that. Even these are virtually the same thickness, but the tools are around a 30% margin thicker on your Victorinox, on these Alox models, right? Which on this particular model, again, it's just like the Huntsman. So let's compare, do a quick correlation between the two, and then we'll talk about certain comparisons and differences. First, with your standard Victorinox Swiss Army Huntsman, you have your 2-in-1, your 3mm Phillips with your can opener, as well as your flathead screwdriver, bottle cap opener, and wire stripper. And next to that, you have your scissors, very sharp, very high quality. And then next to that is the signature tool of the Huntsman, which is your wood saw blade. Okay, again, very sharp, and this is a straight tooth, so you get cut and diggage from your pull and thrust cuts. So it is a very, very effective in its cutting force in both directions, along with your pen blade and your full-size blade, okay? And of course, the back tools you get are your corkscrew. One of my main uses is undoing knots and also burring out the extra little deburrs that you have on the inside of the holes that you have reamed, okay? Aside from that, you have your reamer awl and your parcel hook, which is a pull tensioner aid in my opinion, as well as another aid that you can use to help undo tight and lock down knots, okay? So that is the Victorinox Huntsman, okay? Now for the Victorinox Farmer X, which again is essentially the Victorinox Huntsman, you have the added robustness of your 2-in-1 tool, your 3mm Phillips driver and can opener, right? We did the comparison between the two, but just to show you again, that's what it is. And that's why this is so impressive to me. It's fascinating, right? Because this tool, these are exact same thicknesses, right? But these tools are thicker. And of course, yes, you had to sacrifice the scales, but with this type of scale on there, you're gonna get minimal damage. Yes, you'll have wear over time, but the actual damage to the scale will be close to nothing, if anything at all, right? And that's just what's impressive about this whole ingenuity behind the Victorinox Alox models, okay? So these type of tools are built for everyday use in any type of scenarios that you see fit. Anything that deals with camping or camping, outdoor use, office use, in the work, in any type of work environment that you have, it is something that is a continually needed tool in an everyday setting for many individuals. Okay. Now, as for the Farmer X, sitting at the 93 millimeter mark, it does skip all of those back tools and hook, but it adds that. Remember, I was telling you it adds that inline reamer right here, just like its smaller brother, thin-wise, the Pioneer X Alox. Okay, which in my opinion, is much, as I just showed you, is much more effective and advantageous in its natural execution than the shorter back tool that you have on the Victorinox Swiss Army Climber, and of course the Victorinox Swiss Army Huntsman. Okay, so that being said, what are some final conclusions that I could come to? Well, which one takes the best choice between the two? Well, who am I to give one over the other and all, but I will do my best to express my psyche on the matter. If your world revolves around practicality, refinement, and all-around balanced tool variety with added functions of the scale tools, then the Victorinox Huntsman is still a very good and well-balanced favorite for good reason. Again, you've heard me in my previous videos talk about other Victorinox models that I use with scales, okay? Where I use my ballpoint pen, I use my straight pen, I use my scale tools. I do have a much more leniency toward Celador scale models, right? Because I like to have that added usage of the scale tools, okay? That's just who I am. But I also understand that if you're someone who has a lot of days that involve a more particular need for hard use, wanting that extra strength where it really will count, meeting all the more tough and stubborn demands of daily life, then the Victorinox Farmer X wins hands down, along with the Victorinox Pioneer X. I get that, I understand that, because the Alox scales are very much superior in durability, and the tool layout with that extra added tool thickness to those materials is significantly more tough and much more dependable choice when it really counts. So my final verdict, it comes down to this. The Victorinox Huntsman is the Swiss Army knife for everyday life. And if I may add, just to add this little bit of psyche in there, you're paying, for the Huntsman, you're paying an average of about $4.25 per tool usage. Excuse me. For the Farmer X, it's about $4.25 per tool usage. Sorry, it's less than half that for the Huntsman. Excuse me. Okay, so. But the Farmer X is the only one that you will ever want for any of those extra stubborn moments where an extra little bit of elbow grease and manpower is needed. Okay, so it's really split. I see the best between the two, right? So let's see, how do I add this? Since I use all the provided toolage to the Swiss Army knife, it is for that reason I personally upgraded, because I had the hardest time deciding. It's personally why I upgraded to the Victorinox Swiss Army Ranger, right? Because it's the best of both worlds. It's like you put these two knives together for the most part, and you have the Ranger. Okay, for the most part. Okay. Now, if I don't want to carry something as big as the Ranger and I just kind of want to carry it in two separate tools, often what I'll do is I'll carry something like the Victorinox Swiss Army Climber, and then I will carry my Mountaineer, which again It is a really close blend. If you put the Victorinox Swiss Army Climber and the Mountaineer together, you almost get the Ranger, okay? But all that aside, if you want a knife that feels solid and dependable and built to last decades, right? These two models are some of the best choices that you can make. Either one is an excellent decision. And if either one of these has caught your eye, check the links in the description below in the comment section to grab yours before these deals are no longer in effect. Trust me, once you hold one of these in your hand, you'll understand why Victorinox knives aren't just tools. They're trustworthy legends that last a lifetime. So please tell me what you think. The Victorinox Huntsman or the Victorinox X Alox? Drop your comments below and tell me what your perfect preference for a Swiss Army knife is supposed to be like. And please, if you enjoy the content you see here in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, this is Seth from Moose Plaid Mountaineer, and I will see you all in the next video.